Hi, my name is Shura Taft, and this is Uncommon.
Uncommon is a production by Neuralle, a full-service digital agency. If you want to grow with a premium agency and have the ability to work with Jordan directly, then learn more at neuralle.com/media and request a callback. That's neuralle.com/media.
My name is Jordan Michaelides, and I'm your host on a show where we dig deep on unique individuals. If you like the show, subscribe. We would love that. It gives us a lot of support and helps us keep things going as well. You can always give us a nice little like, which is always useful. Show notes are down below, just in the comments section. You can also find a link there in the description. It's neuralle.com/podcast for all previous episodes. If you want to listen to the audio, if you don't want to be watching it on YouTube, you can find us on all your good podcast apps. That's Uncommon Show. You'll be able to find us everywhere. If you want to see behind the scenes with us, what we're doing each week, search Uncommon or at Uncommon_show on Instagram, and you'll find us there. But what can I say? Thank you so much for checking us out, and let's get into it. My guest this week is Shura Taft, MC, host of probably anything decent happening in the sporting, leisure, and I guess lifestyle world, and of course my upcoming Marriage Celebrant. Shura, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's lovely to be here, Jordan. It is lovely to be here, and it's a lovely occasion because it's a family affair in here. Lauren's helped set it all up, and it feels like we're just dress rehearsal for what's going to come in October this year.
Now I was thinking about, what do we do for icebreakers? Marty's been a busy boy the last few days.
It's Marty Fox.
M Fox.
Fox 01, as he's known, as the Porsche drives around Melbourne.
Yeah. He was actually very busy, but he approved of my true or false structure. So we'll go with true or false.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So, are you Dan Monheit's long-lost brother?
Well, before I say true to this, can I tell you what's funny? I don't know Dan Monheit.
Yeah.
Dan, if you're listening or watching, hello, how are you? But my wife tells me that before we met, I did a series of ads for Expedia, and they were on billboards and whatnot around. And she says she used to always say, God, that guy looks like a cross between Dan Monheit and someone else. I can't remember who it was. And I kept thinking, who is this Dan Monheit? Anyway, I finally saw a photo and I was like, yeah, I can see the likeness.
Yeah.
So true.
There's some likeness.
I think it's the lower half of the face, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. He actually knows your wife's dad. He played basketball or something like that.
Well, a lot of people know my wife's dad. But
True or false, you had a car accident on the way to Mike Goldman's interview?
True or false? Did I have an accident on that one? I certainly had an accident on the way to a funeral. Did I have an accident on the way? No. Oh, yes, I did. Sorry. You're absolutely right. Well, it wasn't so much an accident as I reversed into a park in the city. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't seen the sign that said, do not reverse park in these car parks. And so I reverse parked. My sensors are going beep, 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 as they do. And then the next thing I hear is this almighty crack of glass and smashing. So the sensor didn't even pick it up. Basically, there's a ledge that sits at window height. So as you reverse your car, your sensors don't pick it up because, there's nothing underneath. And the window, and it just cracked, absolutely smashed my window in.
Really?
Yep, and I tried to get my money for them. They're like, nah, sorry, it must happen all the time. There's glass everywhere.
Okay, so Mike Goldman's slightly exaggerating there.
He did, but they'll tell
in 2020, can we see Shuey's cooking adventures?
I'd love Shuey's cooking adventures to hit the screen. I'm in negotiation with Huey, but no, that was a little bit of a gag. We'll see.
Okay, last one for you. If it hadn't been for your dad's GP, you wouldn't be born.
That is true. Strange to say, but my old man went to get a vasectomy after having my sister, who's 4.5 years older than me. And the doctor actually said, you're too young, come back in a few years.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, surprise, surprise. And it was a surprise. And I'm happy to be a surprise. Doesn't make me feel any worse as a person. They got pregnant. So that's why there's such a big gap between me and my sisters.
Are you the favourite as the youngest, the only boy it sounds like, and the surprise baby?
You know what? I think I was early. I think I've faded into insignificance in the last few years. But no, I would think my sisters would say I was the favourite and very spoiled. I think, look, it's hard not to be spoiled when you're the youngest.
Yeah.
And you get away with a bit more. And as a boy, I feel like there was a little bit of flexibility with what I was able to do and what my sisters were able to do. So,
sure.
Am I the favourite? It's hard to say.
Yeah. Maybe it might have stopped when you started just only eating fish fingers.
Yeah, that
would have had.
You are well researched here at Uncommon. Yes, there were. I was a very picky eater. It's funny, I'm going through the same thing with my son now. So I can't really be upset with him because I was an incredibly fussy eater and he's pretty good.
What does he eat?
He eats most things. He just won't eat green vegetables.
Yeah,
I
think that I remember reading something on this. There's an element to this where kids inherently at a younger age struggle with bitter things.
Well, it's funny. Early on, so before my son's almost 3, before that age, they actually eat a lot of things. They don't taste as much because your taste buds aren't as developed. So you can get away. Like my son eats salmon and he likes hummus and all these things. You go, that's kind of weird. Which then, when they start to get the taste buds going, so you sort of 5 or 6 onwards, he'll probably turn around one day and go, I don't like that. That's when you become picky. Most babies and toddlers are pretty good.
Yeah, it's that 5 to 6 years of age. Do you find that they're now looking at it because everyone talks about the terrible 2s and, you know, what's the perfect age and like the best age that a lot of people seem to talk about is like 8 to 10?
Well, I haven't reached that yet.
Exactly,
with my son, so I'm ready.
So far, what's your assessment on sort of the optimal years as a parent?
You know what? I think that really, because we're about to go into it again, we're about to have our second, and the newborn stage to me is a complete haze. I don't have any memory of it, and I'm sure it was harder than I think it was.
Yeah.
But so far, every development stage you reach, you yearn for the one before in a funny sort of way, but then you get these new experiences you enjoy.
Yeah.
So, you know, we wanted him to walk and we wanted him to talk and we wanted him to eat solids and we're trying to get him to go to the toilet now. But then friends of mine are saying, careful what you wish for, because then they start going to the toilet and now it's, okay, you're not doing nappies anymore, but now you're required to do all the wiping and everything. Like it's just a different set of skills. So in terms of with the child, I can imagine it's a lot easier when they're slightly more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Toddlers are still very reliant on you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like to be relied upon sometimes, and there's sometimes it's like, have a break, do something yourself.
Think about your own childhood. One of these interviews I read, the interview I found which gave the best stuff, by the way, was your interview for The Mole. When The Mole had just come out and you'd done an interview with your dad.
Yep.
There was so much in there. It was actually quite amazing. But you spoke about having a very clownish, extroverted, lots of sort of singing as a child. What's your earliest memory of your own childhood?
Well, I'm lucky because my dad worked in media, or not in the media, more in drama and in television. Firstly, we had a lot of video camera footage of our early years.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of, like my wife always says she never gets to see that sort of stuff I've heard. I can see it. And so we would watch a lot of that together. That being said, I have a lot of memories of being, you know, aware of I've got memories, I believe, from when I'm a baby. Just little snippets of things. Mm-hmm. But certainly when I'm sort of 3 or 4 or 5 onwards, lots of playtime, lots of, you know, okay, 2 older sisters, so I was involved in their games, because they just drag you in, you just do this. And there was a lot of, you know, singing and playing musical, you know, turning pots and pans over and playing drums and doing little skits, and those sorts of things are quite strong memories, as are individual playtime, because I was often the little boy and they were doing other things, and as they grew, I just was just their little brother. So I have a lot of games that I played by myself.
Yeah.
I was a pretty good individual player.
Okay.
I used to make games, like I remember I made our entire kitchen table into a football field replete with little straw goals, the 50-metre arc, all the little Playmobil characters had numbers on their back. I had a complete sheet of names. I'd play a full game.
All on your own?
All on my own.
Wow.
All on my own. I filmed one of them and I've actually still got it.
You still got it?
So this is the thing, I think that like, memories are funny things, because we all know that when you talk to someone about a memory that you both share, it can be very different.
Yeah, you're at the end of the day, you're remembering a memory.
Correct.
And it keeps going and going.
The same way that courtroom testimony is fallible, because you show someone something, once and say, "Was this the person?" They go, "Oh, yes, it was," but they're trying to tell them, so they're trying to recall that memory. So the same way when you try and remember things, it can be a bit hate. And my sister tells stories, about, "Oh, I remember that one time we did this," and Mum would be like, "I don't think that actually happened. That might be a dream in your head." We all do that. So I'm sure there's an element of that when it comes to trying to come up with my childhood. But it was a happy childhood. It was full of the things that you talked about, like clownish behaviour and music, and it was we have an extroverted family, I would say. And I yearn for things. It's funny, my son's growing up now, and I think about the world that we live in now, and it makes me sad to think that he won't get to do some of the things that we got to do when we were growing up, particularly the freedom at which we had to go and do things. And what I mean by that is, I would come home, I went to primary school in the same street that I lived in.
Wow. Okay.
And so I could come home from school, drop my bag at the door and say, "See you, Mum and Dad, I'll see you at dinner time." And I was gone until 6, I can't see myself doing that with Ed now in this world. And it's a sad reflection on society. Maybe we've got more population, the roads are busier, but it's also the threats seem to be more real.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I literally about 3 months ago there's a guy who came out here in Australia who talks about this. His name's Jonathan Haidt.
Yep.
Think Inc. is the company that toured him. They do a lot of these sort of scientists that come out. Susie, she's been on the show in the past. And what it was in the 80s in New York, or the 70s and 80s in New York, there were a few kids that were abducted.
Yeah.
And that permeated through the culture that kids were no longer safe. But the percentage of kids that it affected was below a percentage point, like 0.01%. So, but of course, like parents are gonna get scared. They're very protective naturally.
Incredibly, and not to railroad the podcast and go down a different tangent, but
yes,
it's also we're now worrying more. We see more.
Yeah.
We see more because naturally through social media and the way the propagation of the internet means that we know more and we see more.
Yeah.
And because of that, we're naturally more scared. I mean, we are engineered to worry, right?
Yeah.
I remember talking to a friend of mine about having children. He said he'd read this book. So I don't want to quote it because I don't know it exactly, but it's almost controversial in its topic, but it was essentially about a parent who loses a child.
Mm-hmm.
And they describe it as, when your child is born, you are now going to worry about this child for the rest of its life. And it's true. You have a child. The first thing you do is worry. What is it? Breathing? Is it hungry? Is it it's your entire thing? Then it's the next stage. Is that they're going to get to school? How are they going to go at school? Are they being bullied? Are they going to get hurt? Is someone going to Then the next stage is, will they get sick? And so your entire life is spent worrying about this child, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's this quote he read me, which was effectively saying, when the child died, although you feel extreme sorrow and regret and all these things, you also felt a sense of relief. That worry is now gone. And it seems like a funny thing to say, but we spend our lives as parents completely worrying. And so the point of that is that why now I'm sad about Ed's upbringing and his future sister, my child, is I worry. So naturally, will I put blockages in the way of those nice things that we got to do as children?
But do you think that's an interesting point? We worry. Do you find yourself to be a worrier in general?
Yeah.
Like just ignoring kids, but
totally.
Prior to that, would you have worried about? Because I know I am.
Well, I think anxiety is an interesting thing, and we probably grew up thinking, I'm anxious. Like no one would say I'm anxious, and the idea of anxiety or clinical anxiety was like, they're a bit this, but it's not now. And that's actually a really good thing we're starting to learn about the psyche and how to deal with, things like depression and anxiety and all these mental disorders. The thing about anxiety is it manifests itself in really interesting ways. We haven't even got on this, but I mean, I've worked in an industry that is I'm incredibly lucky to have worked in because of the opportunities that I've gotten. But the flip side of that is it's also a very unsure and unstable industry, and it causes a lot of anxieties.
Yeah.
And there was a period in my life where I had no idea why I would wake up in the middle of the night like this.
Yeah, I've had that, yeah.
I think I'm having a heart attack, right? And I look around, I'm like, what has just gone on? I don't know why. Now, anxiety, right? Now, that was a really stressful period in my life. And right now, I'm in a period in my life which I would say is incredibly stressful. I've got one child who's tough, toddler, that's what they are, they're hard. One more on the way. Work is completely like this. That's what the nature of the industry I just spoke about. We're constantly thinking about, could I be better? How do I earn more money? How do I make sure I keep my family secure? How do I do my friends like me? There's a myriad of things that we worry about. We all worry.
Yeah.
And anxiety is just one of those things that we have to learn to adapt and deal with.
I feel like I want to apply Maslow's. Is it Maslow's or Maslow's law? Like a man has a hammer, so everything is a nail. But I recently just read Viktor Frankl's book about man's search for meaning, and he spoke about how like a man who has a why can bear any how. And I feel like do you find now that you have those terrors? Because I've had those in the past at all.
I haven't had those for a long time, the actual wake up, but I certainly. It's really weird, and I don't know how others are, and I know everyone's different, but my period of worrying is before bed. So when I get into bed and I lie down, my head hits the pillow, that's when I worry, which is the stupidest time ever to worry.
Yeah.
Because you're about to go to sleep, shut your brain off, relax, and otherwise you won't sleep well. But it's one of those only times when everything's quiet, no one else is around, my brain starts to work and starts to think about those problems and what's coming and how I should have done this better, and even stupid things like, if I'd played golf that day, like, oh God, I wish I'd done this. So those things, and from all that I'm reading and what I know from sleep specialists, that's the worst time to do it.
Yeah.
Because you're setting your brain into this pattern.
But you also can't prevent it as well.
You can't.
So like I had such debilitating. I didn't have anxiety. I had panic disorder.
Yeah.
Which is why this is so. Like I've read the DSM. I think it's up. Yeah, it's up there. It's super fascinating how anxiety manifests, and it really is just like a pathway that you can't get rid of, because in the past that pathway was life or death. So I found that sort of thing, particularly at night, is easily averted if you just read.
Yeah,
because reading is sort of like a meditative practice where you have to be completely focused on the thing, and for the first 10 minutes you're still in your head, but by the end of it you're so out of your head that I actually fall asleep.
No, I think you're right. And I can see you read prodigiously, which is impressive.
Yeah.
I need to get better at that. It's certainly a thing. I think anyone out there who says that they don't have worries or anxieties is probably lying to themselves. We all have them. Every single person on this earth, except for children, on the most part, because they're not as cognizant of their sort of future. That's what's so beautiful about children, is they're not aware. I think this is the most amazing thing. And the example's often used because things like racism, you go, that's a taught behaviour, that's not an inherent behaviour. Children are pure, and they're pure in every form. Like I watched my son getting an ice cream, and that wow, like
like, this is amazing.
This is the best thing that's happened in his life.
Yeah,
is just an ice cream that day. He doesn't know there's better things to come, or there was, you know what I mean? It's just he's so in the moment. Children are so pure in that sense. So, okay, we'll put them to the side. But everyone has worries.
Yeah.
I actually think everyone has, you could call it a mental disorder of some description.
Yeah. I remember my psych said this to me, that the people who survived the last 10,000 years are the ones who are warriors. Like, it's a trait that is valuable.
If you don't worry, you're not ready, right?
No.
But you can't catastrophize. That's what my wife does, right? So she's a worrier, but she's also, well, then what if, I'm like, okay, that could happen, but this could happen. So that, like, worrying about it is okay if you're aware that there's two or more outcomes. If you're only focused on the one outcome, then that's going to be your sole focus, and it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah. Well, talking about worry, I do wonder how much you were worrying in this sort of early career phase.
We're going to talk about my career now.
Yeah. I tell you what, anyone who's friends with you must go check out the Wesley alumni video.
Oh, yes.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So obviously you went to Wesley. I think you were in every play from year 6
pretty much
onwards. I know you studied...
People still remember Mr. Sowerberry from Oliver in year 7, 1995, and of course... head weasel number 3. But anyway.
There's some, by the way, there's some shocking photos.
Where did you get that?
Look at the hair. We'll have to put that in the actual video.
There's
but that's
a few
like
pimples there too, I'd say.
That's the era of like proper gelling your hair, splitting it down.
And you know what's funny? As a side note, Wesley had a big policy on no gel in your hair, and I had a lot, if you can see that photo. And there were genuinely occasions when the principal would put my head under the tap and wash the gel out.
I've had. I went to Brighton Grammar, and we had a head of. We called him the head of punishment. He was the cadet leader.
Head of punishment.
But I actually can't remember what his title was, but if you weren't clean shaven or you didn't have the proper haircut, and one day I rocked up with like a mohawk type thing.
Yep.
And he took me down to the barber and they shaved my head. They they called and told my parents, and my mum was like, okay.
Oh. That wouldn't fly now.
No, it would not fly.
I love this story about my dad. My dad went to Scotch, and not to talk about all these private schools, but it's just how it was. And he had a moustache. This is in year 11 and 12, so he would have been late 60s or early 70s. And he got hauled into the principal's office to like, you can't have facial hair at private, but at this school. And he said that he walked down the hallway to get to the office of the principal, and on the wall is photos of all the head boys over the years. And of course, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, everyone had facial hair.
Yeah.
Like there's moustaches. So he walked in, and the principal said, you need to shave that off. He said, well, I've just walked down the hallway, and every head boy here at Scotch has facial hair. And the guy's like, I don't care. Cut it off. He's like, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah, like I always used to think I could outsmart the headmaster. Yeah. Mr. Irwin, they've named a centre out of him. They've got like a new student.
The punishment centre.
The punishment centre. This is another good one.
Wow, that's a good find.
The 8A's replay on 7 Sport. That was one of the things, like I wrote down all the different events that you've possibly done. And at the top of that list was 8A's footy replay.
Do you know, in that photo, George, the guy next to you, is still a good friend of mine. And we talked about that. I married him last year, and we had a good laugh.
Not got married.
I'm married to my wife. But yes, I married him and his partner. And, we still laughed about the fact that we did that. We commentated the 8A's football, and, jokes aside, this stuff kind of runs in your blood a bit, I think.
I think so.
It's when I look at videos, we talked earlier about me having videos of my childhood. I've got a video where I literally take our camcorder from home and I hold it like this, and in selfie style. This would be in 1991 or something. And I do a tour of our house and I commentate. Here's the room, and it's stupid, but it was there.
Yeah.
I
think we show an innate sense of what we're good at a young age, and oftentimes it's our environment that will either push it up, stifle it, or make us unsure about it.
Completely.
Like I saw a lot of similarities between, like your dad would often talk down the media industry. My dad did the exact same thing. He's a 4th generation printer, and he's like, oh, you don't want to get into print. And I knew how to run a print machine at like 14 or 15 years of age, like a big commercial printing machine. And he's like, oh, you got to do accounting or like finance, you got to be a banker or something like that. And lo and behold, I did that. And I love that area in economics, but it was always the thing about media that I loved of that niche.
Well, that's it. And you can't control what your child will do.
Like, yeah.
Ed right now is massively into diggers, and he could be a builder. But if he turns around one day and says, Dad, I want to get in the media, I'll probably say exactly what my dad said. Don't. It's pretty simple. But I agree with you. It's funny. I sometimes think about, I wonder how many people out there have this beautiful hidden talent they'll never realise. Like, you could be the world's best flautist, right? You just never played the flute. You didn't know it's inside you. And it sounds a bit stupid to say that, but I've done some work in Aboriginal communities, and I see some kids and I think, you could be the world's fastest kid. You really could, if you had all the, if you went to college and did all the environment. We'll never know.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Do you think, like a lot of people ask about how he's had an impact on your career, but I was more interested, what do you wish, because this is something I don't do with my dad, what do you wish that you could tell him more often that you don't?
My dad?
Yeah.
What I wish I could tell him, you know what, I wish I could tell him to relax his views a little. And why I say that is it's only recently, since I've become a dad and got married and all those things, I've realised just how stubborn I am. And it's completely from him. He's stubborn as a bull.
Yeah.
and I just kind of wish he was able to take on a bit more feedback of other people, and because I'm the same, and it's annoying. My wife finds it annoying. Everyone finds it annoying. I know I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish that that was relaxed a little.
I've got the same thing, I think. I do wonder though, like, so you're talking about agreeableness or assertiveness. I think
Totally.
I think
it's okay to have another view. It's okay to do something slightly someone else can do something slightly different. We can go the way you want to go.
Yeah. I think there's some people are just like that. That's what makes them the type of person they are.
True.
Like my dad to me is a clear leader. He could not ever be anything else, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I do wonder, is that the environment you grew up in, or just an inherent trait that's gone through the family over decades?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's interesting because, the idea of leaders, I'm really interested in the idea of leaders, and the best leaders are the ones who can listen and take on other people and in fact delegate, and, whether it's coaches or leaders of industry, my feedback is, and what I've seen is that, those people who are able to listen and not be stubborn are the best leaders.
You've done a lot. I think your big break, or what, I was talking earlier about this biomedical science degree, and you spoke about how it's the most bizarre switch. How long was it from finishing that to 2006 where you did Kids WB and Pyramid? I feel like combined you nearly did 1,000 episodes with those shows.
Yep, correct.
Just marry that up for me. How does someone get there from there?
Good question. So I finished university at the end of 2003 with my degree.
Yep.
And at that stage I was still potentially going to do my my honours.
Yep.
And I was looking to do it in forensics, believe it or not, because biomedical science wasn't going to be the right thing for me. But you could kind of branch off. A lot of the people I went to university with in biomedical science are now doctors.
Yeah.
It was a sort of pathway for people who didn't get 99 point whatever.
Yeah.
And you could work your way up.
Is this in Melbourne?
It's in Monash.
Monash, yeah.
So, end of 2003, and then I'd planned to do the big overseas trip with mates in 2004. So that was June 2004. So I had a natural period of 6 months to earn money and make sure I'm ready for this trip. So I went and worked in cafes. I was working for Peter Rowland's Catering. I was earning money any way that I could. That was good. That was a good time. I mean, that's the best time in your life, I think. Early 20s, you're at university, or you've just finished university, you've got no care in the world.
And zero responsibility.
Which is the best bar to go to on a Tuesday? Who does the Thursday night drink special? That's the mindset, right? So went overseas in 2004 till the start of 2005. Had an amazing time. One of the best things I ever did. In fact, it was on that trip that I decided that this was the pathway to at least look down.
Why?
Because I spent a long time, when you travel like that for 8 months, you're doing a lot of buses and trains. There's a lot of times looking out a window with, world going by, and you're doing this and you're thinking. And when you're deep in your own thought, you start to sort of address, where am I at? Now, you don't try and get too deep, but it's really a bit of self-reflection. You do. It's natural to do that. And I remember thinking, why am I doing this stuff that I don't really love? Well, I really do love entertaining people. I'm obviously an extrovert, and I've always felt very comfortable on stage or in front of a camera or whatever it is, in front of people. Could this be something that I could do, And so came back from that at the start of 2005, and then so 2005 in its entirety was set aside to get into the television industry. And I set myself an achievable goal. It was, if I don't do it within 2 years, we'll do something else.
Yeah.
So shortly thereafter, got a job at Nova radio station.
So that was the first gig?
That was the first gig. And that was interesting. I looked around radio stations, what are the opportunities? And at that time, Nova still had Casanova's street team. You could join the street team. And I remember, I
remember the Casanovas.
I wrote them an email and said, I thought I'd try and stand out from the rest. And I wrote them an email saying, look, I would like to apply. This is my one email I'm allowed from jail. I'm out soon. I try to make it funny and a bit sort of different. And I got the phone call from the chick who was running the program. She's like, Shura, I'm not sure if you're absolutely insane or great. So why don't you come in tomorrow for an interview? I was like, I'm in. So I started the next day, really. But so Nova was the first thing. And then you're in the industry and you start to feel that buzz. Even though we were just street teamers, Hughesy and Kate are there. You start to get that kind of little feel for the industry. So that was the first thing. And then I tried to meet as many people as I could in the industry so that I could talk to them and get a little bit of their experience and try and find out. And I was lucky enough to know someone who knew Jules Lund.
Okay.
and also a woman by the name of Jennifer Adams, who had been a Channel 7 newsreader and was just about to embark on a series called Places We Go, which still exists to this day. So that's 14 years ago. And after meeting her for just an hour, chatting about life and what I wanted to do, she called me 2 weeks later and said, "Hey, I'm going on this first ever Places We Go adventure. I'm going to India. I need to take someone with me as like a sidekick co-host. Would you do it?" And that was kind of the first bit of it. Now that the reason I sort of don't, you might have seen it, whatnot. It didn't go to air for a couple of years because they had to edit it and lots went on. But it was my first experience is going off and doing filming and being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting learning experience because here I was with an incredibly experienced journalist / newsreader, which I'm very different from, because newsreaders and journalists are very measured. They're very, here's the script, and I've got to be kind of serious. You can't be too ad lib.
Short form, long form, and live are totally different mediums.
All different. Yeah, they're just different beasts.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot because I was really keen to do more than probably she wanted me to, and I might have shown, it was learning. Check your ego at the door sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, I also auditioned for Channel V.
Okay.
When they chose Marty Smiley. And I got down pretty far and then didn't get the job and was pretty devastated and wrote an email to the guy who was the producer saying, what can I do to get in? And this piece of advice he gave me still stands true to me, which I give other people advice when they're asking to get into media or any of this sort of game. Which is, he wrote back to me, to his credit, because he didn't have to. I was just some guy who'd auditioned. And he said, "Shura, thanks for the email. I do remember you. Well done on your audition. Unfortunately, you weren't what we were looking for this time, but you never know next time. My one piece of advice to you is this. Be really sure of who you are and what you offer and what is unique about you, and think about how that will then translate across the lens. And if you can do that, someone will find something in you that they want."
Yeah.
Right? And I got the same piece of advice, oddly, from a radio producer who was sort of a mentor of mine when I was at Nova, and he said the same thing. He said, you need to know where you stand in this industry. You're not a stand-up comic, so you're not going to be the Will Anderson or the Sam Pang, or you know what I mean? You're a very good host and an anchor. So that's where you need to position yourself. Don't try and be other things.
Yeah.
And so I've always stayed true to that, because if you try and be something, it's not going to work.
I feel like we learnt this with doing the podcast for a long time. I tried to be like a Joe Rogan or a this or that, and I've realised the thing that we were good at, the form, the style we went for was slightly different. It was in a similar vein, but it was different. And it took a long time for me to... It was actually a talk with Marty that made me realise that. And I would agree.
Well, like he's a disruptor.
Yeah.
Right? He knows that. He knows what he is. Now, Marty won't be everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. I don't think he cares, which is great, and I really respect that about him. Yeah. People ask me all the time, what's Marty like? Marty's great.
Marty's amazing.
And I respect him to hear for what he's done in his business, for what he's done for his family. And I'm not just talking about his immediate, I'm talking about his whole family. I know his story. And people like that, I take my hat off. I really, really respect. The same way I respect Tim Gurner, who's another friend of mine who's turned, a small investment into $500 million as a developer. These people are next level in their way of thinking and their way of doing. And they know exactly who they are and what they stand for.
And I think you get that from being persistent, but being willing to improve all the time. I've never ever had any complete focus on this is what I have to be the entire time. Whenever I feel like seeking third-party opinions is really good. That's sort of a guideline to success in the long term.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
You've done a lot in terms of hundreds of events would be an understatement. I mean, here's some of my favourites from the list. 8 Days Footy Replay on 7 Sport.
That's one of the big ones, yeah.
The Mole. We had Kids WB, of course. You're at SCA for years, and I think you're still actually at SCA.
Well,
right?
I am. In fact, I'm a casual there.
Yeah.
I've actually sort of found a little newish path, and that's Southern Cross Austero, for those who don't know, which is at Triple M have got me learning to commentate football. Now, it's funny, it shouldn't be such a surprise given you've shown that thing of me pretending to commentate football, and I was doing it as a kid, but I'd never thought of it as this is the one thing, just as sort of a side note, one thing I always struggle with as a presenter, and this is because I got into television when television really was still 5 channels, and that was really it. So if you were on TV, you were doing an amazing thing. Now there's a lot more. You can make your own vodcast, you can YouTube and all those things. So it's a lot more saturated. And that's not to say it's a bad thing, but I'm just saying it's different. When I'd sit with producers, they'd often say that same thing that I just talked about in terms of knowing who you are and your unique thing. And they'd say, well, what's your unique thing? And one of the things I would struggle with was if you look at television now, even now, same back then, Dr. Chris Brown, he's a vet. He'll always be able to do a vet show, and he's now turned into a presenter. Jamie Dury was a gardener. Jamie Dury became a presenter unto himself. Scott Cam was a chippy. Scott Cam's now the presenter of The Block. They have these things that are uniquely them, that's their skill set, that they can build on and become a presenter through that. Tom Williams was a chippy as well. So I never had that, and that was always hard. I was always like, but I'm a good host. I can host, I can anchor, I can do those things, and this is what I've done in my life. And sometimes that's not enough.
Yes. There was a question here I had on this, which was, I was trying to understand what is an emotional topic for Shura, and I think it's clearly sport.
Sport's definitely emotion.
Yeah.
But sport's in a few ways, because it causes emotions. Sport is the greatest piece of drama that's out there, really, because you can't write. Things will happen that you can't write. And when I watch it unfold, because I played it for a lot of my life, I still do. Golf is my biggest passion outside of my family and my work, and it frustrates me to hell because it causes all these emotions. But yes, that's an emotional topic.
Well, before I get into the real question I want to ask, we had a note from Gossy, Brendan Goss. He wanted to know who was the best player you played against in the VAFA.
Not a loaded
against
question
old
at all.
Zabs. Definitely not loaded.
Matt Handley.
I'm gonna get.
Chopper.
I think he's gonna like that.
Chopper. Yep.
But what I wanted to know is, see, this is something that there's people who understand sport, and then there's people who are just like, it's just fucking people running on a ground. I go to St Kilda games every single home game.
You understand emotion.
I totally get it. What is it that most people don't get about sport?
Well, I think my wife's a really good example. So my wife grew up with a father who is an incredibly successful basketball coach. Mm-hmm. He's coached Australia to 2 Olympic Games. He's won Commonwealth Games gold. He's won NBL championships. So she grew up in that champion environment. And in fact, a lot of the import players, so the Americans, would come and live with them. So she would live with these, African American players and whatnot, and grew up with them. But she's never played sport. She's never been in a team environment. And we joke about it, and she's like, I don't know how to be in a team.
Never, ever? Not a single team?
Well, she tried at school, but she was never into it. She doesn't enjoy it. And so out of school's never done it, right? The thing I think about sport and understanding it, for those people who are like, it's just a bit, is until you're in it. Now, I played 15 years of amateur football, regardless whether it's amateur football or hockey or lacrosse or whatever your sport is. There's something intangible about being within a team environment. You've got a cast of characters, all very different upbringings, outlooks, beliefs, skill sets, getting together for a common goal. So I've got to work with you, even if I don't necessarily agree with you on everything or I don't like it. On that day, you've got to come together and you've got to do something, a collective goal. Feeling the most incredible, we were lucky enough to win a couple of grand finals. Now you work your entire year. Well, no, this is my team.
Oh, your team,
who I played for.
So you won 2, yeah?
Well, we won 3, but 2 were in A grade. 1 was in B grade. We don't talk about that. That's a joke. But when you've worked your entire year, and regardless of whether you're a professional or an amateur, I don't care. You've put your blood, sweat and tears into something from the start of the year to the end, and you're standing there at the end, and your absolute ultimate goal has been achieved. I cannot describe to you that release of adrenaline. I cannot describe to you that feeling. All I can tell you is that I can close my eyes at night and take myself there and go, I want to do that again. And I never probably will. I certainly won't in a football sense. That is something that if you don't play sport, you won't understand it. And you can't appreciate when I watch Hawthorn and I see the players do the same thing. I go, I get that. And I also understand because I played in 8 grand finals for 3 wins. So I had 5 grand finals I didn't win. That is gut-wrenching. Yeah. And you get to the siren goes and you go, I'd rather not have played in this game.
Yeah.
Right? So I think understanding the emotions of it, of injury, of seeing friends get injured, of ups and downs, that is why sport is so beautiful.
I think sport is life condensed into a year, if that makes sense. Like, I think about the 2009, 2010 grand final years for St Kilda. That 2009 when the siren went, when we should have won against Geelong, was... And we were sitting next to two other Geelong supporters who were very, like, diplomatic. They were like, sorry, guys, all the best. And, like, I was just, it's the worst fucking feeling in the world.
It's interesting you say that. Even your turn of phrase, we should have won. It's like anything in life. And I've had massive disappointments in life, particularly in work. And there's I should have had, why didn't that, the Mole, why wasn't it a huge success? We should have done 2 or 3 seasons. We were ready for that. You learn... As you mature and you grow and you're able to look back on it, that should-haves, they just don't, they don't mean much.
Yeah.
Because should-have didn't happen.
But they give you a sense that, and this is what I get from it, is the year after your mindset changes. You're like, well, that's done. I've learned from this. This goes back to that persistent, improving mindset.
Definitely, and you got to learn from those things. And I've certainly learned from those moments for me. The Mole... That example I gave probably being the biggest. I went into the Mole as a upcoming presenter. I'd done a number of years on Kids WB and on Channel 9 and Pyramid, and I'd done live things for Channel 9. I'd hosted, things for the Today Show. I'd filled in on the weather. I'd done a lot of stuff, and I was ready to do the next step. And Channel 7 came knocking, and next thing I know, I'm on a primetime show. And that's, to this day, is still probably the best experience in TV I've had, because we shot for 2.5 months up and down the east coast of Australia. I was presenting to helicopters, there were drones, there was, we were doing things with fighter jets. It was crazy. It was amazing, right? So here's this high for 3 months. Then the next few months we're doing post-production, so doing all the voiceovers, seeing the cuts and the edits and doing all the press and the promo, and you're up, and within 1 week, it went from being at 7:30 at night to 9:30 at night, and we were done.
Yeah.
In a week, my dream was crushed.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate example of the highs and lows of the industry that I've chosen. And I know a lot of industries have it, so I'm not saying it's just unique to media, but it took me a long time to get over that, and I probably still have never gotten over it, to be fair. But I've learned to deal with the fact that some things in life don't work out the way that you thought.
Yeah, I think there's similarities in the way that there's bets made, which I'll get into later on. I want to talk about you as a storyteller and producer, so to speak. But what I'm very intrigued by is, how do you view the actual craft of as a host or an MC? Like, I have a sort of idea as to what I want with each interview, or what's the thing that's going to make me unique, or what's the thing that I'm searching for in each interview. What is that for you? Well,
I think that firstly, there's a separation between those two things. So a host and an MC, I see very separately. MC I see as kind of a live host to an audience, and the goal is to bring the audience with you to whatever event you are doing. And that's the same for a wedding, corporate event, standing in front of the MCG, to the fans of Hawthorn before a game. Presenting's a little different. You're most of the time you're doing it down a camera, and that's the engagement point. And I do teach this. In fact, I've just started a company to do this. But
Paired Media.
Paired Media, and I teach a little bit differently from, say, some of the courses and things out there. They're big on, imagining the camera as a person and whatnot. I think there is, within all of us, the ability to present, some better than others, let's be honest. I've seen both sides of it. But in terms of presentation skills, I like to look at it and go, why am I here? What am I doing? And what am I selling? I say selling, but like, you're selling an idea or a product if you're doing an ad, and that guides me to the best possible way to get that across the camera. In terms of emceeing, it's really interesting. I got a phone call a couple of days ago from a friend who's emceeing a wedding. He said, "Mate, can you send me a couple of the scripts you've done from weddings?"
Scripts?
Because I want to do, I want at least a couple of things to be ready for. And I said, to be honest with you, mate, I don't write scripts, right? People will be surprised by this, but because I MC weddings of people I've never met sometimes, or met once. But the biggest thing for me is I want the audience to believe that I'm their friend. if they walk away, and that's what I tend to get the feedback from the couple is that, oh, everyone thought you were our mate. I don't want people sitting there going, oh yeah, here's this hired MC. Is it that gag he got off Google?
Yeah.
I want them to feel like I'm the mate they've got up and got to MC. So that's for me now to try and get that across. And in doing that, my notes are really housekeeping, welcome, bridal entrance. And then from that, I glean what I need to from the couple, from the room. I look around, I take it in, and then I project that out. So I probably have a different style to some. Some people really need to follow a script or follow an exact idea. It's not how my brain works.
Yeah. Yeah, the way it works every medium is different. It would be harder. A live is harder, but also easier in a sense that you're not the expectations on the amount of research that you would do, as an example, wouldn't be as high.
Well, not necessarily. I would certainly choose live over pre-recorded every day of the week because there's no second takes. And because of that, you naturally just do it. And you're not afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes, they're normal. We all make mistakes. We all, stumble on a sentence, we get a wrong fact, whatever. The beautiful thing about live is there's no second chances. You just do it, and if you muck up, you go, sorry, what I meant to say was, and that's okay.
Yeah.
With pre-recorded
about
things, so it's an interesting mindset. I always hate, and I still do to this day, and it seems so stupid. When we're doing Kids WB as an example, we'd have we had a script, but we were allowed to ad-lib off it. And my producer was very good. He'd write a couple of jokes in it. And I'd say my joke and there'd be a bit of a laugh and then, one of us would mark up and they go, we'll go again. Now, I hated doing that joke again. Even though the only people hearing it for the second time are in the studio, you'll always hear it for the first time out there, right? Yeah. But in my mind, I'm repeating the same joke.
Yeah.
And I hated that. And I still do, and I've got to get over it because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The people will see it for the first time, and even if I believe that I'm now telling it, but I feel like I'm not giving it its due justice because I'm saying it for the second time, so I'm not going to give it the same emphasis.
I see why you really liked doing plays now because you seemed to really enjoy the natural engagement. You did
completely.
Yeah.
And that's why ad-libs, things that are ad-lib, I love.
Yeah.
Great example, tonight I'm doing the bushfire relief thing for Tennis Australia. We've got Roger Federer and Serena Williams and all these people. And I've already spoken to my producer and I've said, I don't need a script, just tell me what I'm doing. Yeah. And it will literally say, welcome everyone, tell them they can donate, and interview Roger. And I'll have in my mind, by the way,
you have topics.
Yeah, I shouldn't say I'm not prepared because that would be ridiculous. But I certainly won't have a genuine, because if you're too rigid with your scripting, you will miss something. Yeah. You know this. You chat to enough people. You have to listen.
Yeah.
Because if I say something and you then go, mm-hmm. So you went and you've just missed a moment that we could have. You just never know.
Yeah, that's a big thing I learned in the early days. I used to literally read shit, and the conversation was so disjointed, and you can see that with newer interviewers, podcasters as well. They're not listening to the person. They're like, okay, cool. And then they go on to the next question. It's like, fuck, man.
And as a listener, you're going, oh, you just missed that. I want to know what he meant.
You've left that on the table.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Leaving change on the table is the biggest cringe that I get.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't even really, if I think about it, I don't actually use this stuff. My hope is most of it is in my head.
No, but I'm impressed by this. I've done a lot of this sort of stuff. And you've gone to a deeper level of research than I've seen before, to be honest with you,
right.
which is impressive and good because it's very easy to do. And by the way, I'm not the most interesting person in the world, and there's certainly people who've done far more than me. But when I've been interviewed for things, it's often a similar line of questioning. How'd you get into it? What was your part? That stuff is very interesting, by the way. But it's sometimes boring. Nice to be able to go down a different path.
Yeah, I think
hence uncommon.
It's uncommon. I think most of those, I don't know, it's very hard. I just think that when I listen to those interviews, there's just so much left on the table that makes, people know, okay, he got into the industry somehow. There's a general idea as to how this sort of works. Sometimes there's some gaps, like the fact that I didn't really understand you go from this degree to all of a sudden hosting the show, and you explained it, and that's interesting because that to people is what they're trying to marry up.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
No, I didn't even explain. I mean, I never got to the fact that the way that I got to proper TV, because the whole thing about me going and doing that thing with Jennifer Adams was then I came back to square one. I was back working in cafes, and it wasn't until a friend of mine who worked in radio called me and said, hey, Channel 9 are looking for new presenters. They've put out
an ad.
Well, yeah. saying a press release saying looking for presenters. So I went along with hundreds of other people and auditioned for. Originally, it was a late night chat, like a bit like Hot Dogs Up Late. It was called Quizmania.
Yeah.
And in fact, Nikki Osborne, who is currently in The Jungle and I'm a Celebrity, was on Quizmania at the same time when I was meant to be on it. So I auditioned for that, and in my second audition, got my call back, they said, "Can you read this script for a kids show?" And that was when I was like, I just want to do this so badly. I don't want to do a show at midnight. I'd rather do a kids show. This would be such a good way to get in.
Yeah.
Then I was told I was too old at 23, so I just focus on the Quizmania. So I didn't.
Really?
Yeah. And then 3 weeks later, I got another phone call. Actually, come back in. We're going to retest you. And what I now know, I didn't know at the time, was that my producer wanted me, but he had to fight a battle with the casting director who had this idea in her head she wanted an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old. And the next thing you know...
Which is strange, because if you think about most kids shows I watched, it's always like an older guy or girl, like a sort of father or mother figure.
Correct. So,
whereas you're you were at that age where, well, he's not 18, but he's not 40.
No.
And so he's like the cool older brother.
Yeah. And you know what's amazing about it? The best thing about Kids WB is I still see people who go, Kids WB? Oh, yeah. I went to a cafe the other day and the chick walking behind the machine, she goes, "I know you from somewhere." And I was like, she goes, "Did you do some TV?" I said, "Look, it's always a bit, it's genuinely a little bit like embarrassing. You don't know what to say." I go, "Yeah, I did it." She goes, "Kid shows?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "Kids WB?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "That's so funny. I used to watch that every week." And that still gives you a little buzz.
Yeah.
But I said, "How old are you?" And she goes, "I'm 20, I think she was 22. And I go, "Yeah, it was about 10
Makes
years
sense.
ago. You were 12.
I think I just missed it.
What a shame. By the way, it's just finished forever, which is really sad because it was a beautiful thing to be involved. I think because we all have memories of kids' TV growing up. I remember Agro's Cartoon Connection. I remember Saturday Disney. I remember watching What's Up Doc, which, by the way,
TV.
What's Up Doc was Kids WB down the track, same show. That's my memories, and I know now that I'm part of some children's memory. I love that. I will always hold that close to watching my son watch TV, and knowing that, he'll have his little TV idols. That I was that for a small period of time for some children. I still love that.
You could still have that. I mean, there's the Mr. Rogers of the world. I don't know if you've seen that new movie with Tom Hanks.
I haven't seen it. No, yes.
But you could have a second movement.
A rebirth,
a rebirth at 60.
Any producers who are watching want to do a kid show? I'm in.
I guess I was really interested because you've done so many events. I mean, I didn't even get to roll through them, but like Brownlow Medal, Fashions of the Field, I think Fashions on the Field for both Caulfield and Melbourne Cup for 12 years, I think it was.
Not for 12 years. I've done many times over 12 years.
Okay. So in a space of 12 years. There's countless stuff here. To you, what makes an event unique?
Oh, well, that's a big question. I mean, there's a number of elements that make an event unique. I think what's really interesting, what helped me a little bit, was before I got into presenting, when I was at Nova, and even before that, I worked in promotions.
Uh-huh.
And promotions was putting on events and making sure the audience has a good time, and understanding that, giveaways and music and all these things piece together to make an event. Now, it's interesting now because we haven't even talked about it, but I now work in an industry in the wedding industry. So naturally, people are trying to make their weddings unique, and we'll certainly be doing that for you and Lauren in October. But so, to your original point, what makes an event unique is all the elements have a place. And this is what I find really interesting because often I'm asked to do an event as an MC, and it's almost like an add-on. Oh yeah, we need an MC, and and it's almost like they don't want to pay you because it's like, oh, we need an MC. MCs will make your event.
Yeah.
And that's not just giving myself a plug. Any good MC will make an event.
I would agree with that.
Because you can have the best lighting, the most incredible flowers, super music, a great room, comfortable chairs, and a terrible MC, and what will people talk about afterwards? They'll say, he was terrible, right?
Well, they'll get on their phones.
Exactly.
They'll start talking to themselves.
So I think an MC or a host is a hugely important part of making an event unique. And the sort of add-on to that is if you can get your MC to be adaptable, and that's one thing, you just read out all the things that I've done, whether it's Fashions on the Field, I've hosted the Sausage King Awards, I've done things for universities, I've hosted football games, all sorts, and every different time is a slightly different version of myself. So I have to adapt to make the event unique.
Yeah.
This is a true story. If you and Lauren came to me and said, Shura, when we get married, we want you to dress as Elvis, and be like, it's here's Jordan, here's Lauren. Yeah, I would do it for you. I would do it for you because it would make the event unique and it would be good for you.
Yeah.
So that is how you make an event unique, I think. Right?
That's good. It's funny because I was at an event last night. I was just thinking like, fuck, this MC is so boring. And you notice like people really like straight away, they get on their phones. It was there for like a documentary, an industry documentary showing, like the premiere. And oh boy.
Makes a difference, right?
It does. The first half an hour felt like hell.
Well, I was going to say to you, actually, I was thinking about this morning about what we'd chat about. And I was thinking about how fascinating Australians are because and this is a known trait of Australians, we love an underdog, right? We do love an underdog. So, watching a sporting event, there's an outside, you want that person. We want that. But once the underdog becomes successful, you've become too successful now. We don't like how did you deserve to get that? What have you done to get, we love cutting people down. It's a tall poppy thing and we all know it, but I don't know why it sits there. But you experience a little bit of it when you get a modicum of fame or whatever it is. People will want to bring you down because you shouldn't be too big for yourself, Yeah. And what I hold close, what I hold dear to myself in terms of my work when I know I've done a good job is, and it sounds funny to say this, when I do an event, whether it's a wedding or a corporate or whatever, and you're walking from the microphone stand or you're going into the toilet and a bloke, particularly men, because women are far more generous with compliments, just the way that they are, a bloke who you don't know goes, good job, mate. And that's it. And that's enough, because he doesn't have to say it. And we would normally be like, whatever, I don't care. When a guy comes up to you and says, good job tonight, mate, or well done, that was really good, you go, oh. Yeah. He doesn't have to say that. And as an Australian, we don't do that much. No. So I take that and I always hold on to those.
That's the thing. Yeah, for me it's like in the first 10 minutes, can I get someone to say, geez, this is well researched? That's what that's my little thing.
Well, it's good. I don't know if I took 10 minutes or 20, but we got there eventually.
You as a storyteller, I know you've been involved as a producer. There was Hitmaker Studios, 1,000 Word Productions. You had your live brand and now you've got Paired Media. Yeah. How do you view storytelling?
Well, I guess, again, a bit like how do you make an event unique, it's about all the elements. So in terms of telling a story, you need as much information as you can to make that. And it's funny because right now my son loves being told stories.
What's his favourite story?
Well, there's Digger getting stuck and there's Dragon not there.
Okay, I don't know either.
No, as in these are made up. So Digger getting stuck, he just wants a story about a digger getting stuck in the mud. And every element of the story can change each time. What I'm saying is, he goes, tell me Digger getting stuck. And I'll go, well, one time at the building site, all the construction vehicles were working hard and Bulldozer was there and then you just tell this story, right? And Dragon not there's one my wife made up about how, because he thinks a dragon lives under our stairs. So she went there one day, she opened the door and the dragon wasn't there. Guess where? And then he can go anywhere. That's the right.
And where does he go? Wow.
Well, this is the thing, and what's really interesting about that is I find it hard sometimes when you're sitting there telling a kid a story and you've got the world as your oyster as far as the imagination. You can get a bit caught. It's actually a really good skill, and I actually reckon it's probably the best training ground to be able to tell stories. To be able to tell a child a story and have a beautiful, narrative that follows a story that look at a little plot. And you get to the end, and the dragon was happy and had an ice cream, and Ed and Dragon went to bed, right? You've now brought all the elements together, you're on the spot, and you've got to tell this story. So when it comes to storytelling for me, it's got to be about the why. So if it's telling a brand story, okay, you sit down, you get to know the brand, what do you want to get out of this? How do we shape this to your needs? If I'm telling my story, I need to know where I want to start and finish and what I want to get across. But yeah, the art to a good story is making sure the narrative has a good flow. I think that's...
Yeah. It sounds like format and what would be the word? The people that are involved really determine how you guide the story.
Definitely. Because the same way that I would tell a story differently if I'm co-hosting something, I have to because I'm now sharing the space, than if I'm by myself down the camera one-on-one.
Yeah. I feel like I should buy you... A Hero with 1,000 Faces.
I'm up for anything.
It's a very, very good book. That's like literally a book about the different structures of like stories that have existed for millennia. And I'm reading at the moment. I find it fascinating. Because the thing that made me love stories and media and all that sort of stuff was my grandpa had a big ass bookcase like this, probably 4 times the size. he'd pull out some chunky book which I couldn't even see the cover of or what it even said because it was all in Greek, and then he'd start reading Greek mythology. It was amazing. So,
well, stories for as long as time are what keep us together. I mean, and they tear us apart as well. But they're all stories. The Bible is a story. The Torah is a story.
Life is a story.
Life is a story. Understanding. I don't know whether everyone takes an interest in their family history, but that is an incredible story. If you're able to trace back, everyone has an incredible story. I don't care where you're from. You have an incredible story.
Yeah.
If you're a first, second, third, fourth, fifth generation Australian, that is a story. Somewhere down the line, someone came here.
Yeah.
Someone did something that was amazing. There's a story. My family escaped Nazi Germany. My family came from Russia and started a pen shop with nothing. My great-grandmother sewed gold into her clothes so she could bring it across as a refugee. The stories are incredible. How do you tell those stories?
Yeah. Before we get into these rapid-fire questions,
sure.
I want to ask you about weddings. You did a few interviews already about them.
Yeah.
I guess I'm intrigued from your point of view, what are the biggest mistakes that people make with weddings? Like, what are the consistent mistakes you see made? I know you spoke about the fact that guys often don't get involved, or, I don't think you've had too many bridezillas, so to speak.
Not too many, I've been lucky. A couple come to mind. The first and foremost is, and I say this to all the couples I meet with, I think I would have said this to you and Lauren as well, is throw everything out the window what you believe a traditional wedding to be, because that doesn't exist anymore. So that's the biggest mistake. People come in and go, yeah, so how we've got to do that. And you're like, no, you don't have to do rings. No, you don't have to do that. You only have to have a celebrant and you have to say the minimum legal vows. Everything else is up for grabs. So that's the first thing. The second, and I saw this on the weekend and I just still can't believe that people do this, particularly a parent. I found it really disappointing. It's not even my wedding. I watched two fathers, both the father of the groom and the father of the bride, who were both very nervous speakers, and that is okay, by the way. It's okay to be nervous. Get up, say, I didn't write anything down, struggle, and basically say nothing, and then leave. Now, if this is your daughter or your son's most important day of their life to that point, and you can't bring yourself to write something down, particularly if you're nervous, because some people can speak from the heart, and and I've seen some incredible. Look, I haven't written anything down, but blah blah blah, and it's amazing. But most don't, and you will regret it. And I've done it. I did it at my sister's wedding. She did a very small wedding. It was just 14 or 12 people, my wife, my sister, and we weren't meant to do speeches. And I got up and made one. I got one, made it off the top of my head, and it was terrible. And I really regret it. I should have done it. I should have written something down.
Yeah, because when you're given time to pass through that information, and like if I'm ever asked to do a speech, I'll just start making notes. It might be a month ahead, and then I come to it later on, and then you've actually got something concrete to talk about.
Correct.
My dad's one for speeches. He loves a good speech. Like pages and pages of notes.
Well, that's another mistake. Like, I say to people, don't let people make long speeches. No one wants to hear the same.
I've told him that recently.
Yeah, well, I'll be on him. Yeah. What's your dad's name?
Tim.
Tim. I'll be on Tim like white on rice. He will not.
He probably won't mind that, but he loves. He needs to. His problem is he's known for going over 10 minutes, which is not a good thing. All right, rapid fire questions.
All right, I'm ready.
To get you out of here and onto the tennis. Who are the leaders that you most respect as interviewers, hosts, or MCs?
Well, I mean, as a host, I was always really drawn towards Jeff Probst, who's the host of Survivor and has done more than 30 seasons of the show. That's incredible in itself.
Iconic.
He's iconic. You can tell he's invested in the show. A lot of the stuff he does will be ad lib. Reacting to characters. That's my favourite part of presenting is doing shows like The Mole, because I was dealing with people and I was able to... Weird people, but the same way that I deal with weird people in weddings. I love interpersonal relationships. I'm the sort of person who talks to the person in line in front of them at the bank or whatever. Like that's my dad's the same.
Yeah.
Because every person, I talk to every Uber driver, every taxi driver, every person, because everyone... We talk about stories. I mean, we could go on forever. I know this is meant to be a rapid fire question. I've just taken this on another tangent, but I think that is beautiful.
Yeah.
When I'm in an Uber and I get a 5-minute or 10-minute story of this Eritrean refugee who's sending money home to his 4-year-old kid he's never met, That's an incredible story.
Yeah, I love that too. And Lauren,
Like Humans of New York. Like,
yeah, Lauren hates it. She
Yeah.
hates it
Yeah.
when I talk to
Same. My wife does too.
Uber drivers. She's like, they don't want to talk to you. I'm like, well, for the ones that do, like we met one guy who came on a boat from Sri Lanka and came up to Christmas Island. The story he had around like, like the story he had about getting here and how they almost nearly all of them died, but then like 6 hours later an Australian warship picked them up, and like why he left.
But it's shameful. It's shameful that more people don't do it, because that's how you understand. You can easily shut your eyes and say what's going on Christmas Island or whatever is just, it's out of my world. But when you meet people who've been through it, who are so thankful to be here, it changes your perspective. And we're not going to get political. But in terms of that, what was the original question?
Hosts, MCs, interviewers.
Oh, yes. So Jeff Probst, sorry.
Survivor guy.
So Jeff Probst, Survivor guy. In terms of interviews, I mean, I really like... oh my God, I've just completely forgotten. Channel 10, he's an English comic who does his own chat show. He's always on...
English on now?
I mean, look, Denton Parkinson, these guys that have forever done it are great, and they'll always be kind of experts in their field. They love that. But I wish I could remember his name, and that's going to annoy me forever.
I don't you hate that?
Gordon?
I'm always good with first names, but last names in interviews, for some reason, they really screw me up.
I can see him. He's funny, he's gay, he gets all the best guests on.
Graham
Norton.
Yeah, Graham Norton. That's on the ABC, I think.
Channel 10 happened as well.
It's
Channel 10, and there's also... Anyway, he's exceptional.
Okay.
Because bringing humour to an interview subject is the best.
Yeah.
I was lucky through tennis to do a series for Kia where I was driving around players like Rafael Nadal and Joe Wilfred Songer and Marin Cilic, all these guys. And you realise that if you can get someone, and I get it too when I'm being interviewed by you, because I don't know what's coming. You want them slightly out of their comfort zone, but with a little bit of humour, so they're not caught off guard. You're going to get the best answers.
Yeah.
And Graham Norton, I feel like, does that so
well. He does
it
really, really well with the comedic element. Just the little, Graham Norton clips on YouTube are one of my favourite things. What's in the fridge at home?
Everything.
What's everything?
I'm the shopper and the cook in our house, so I control what's in there. There's always dips.
Yeah.
I'm a big dip guy.
Top 3 dips?
I mean, tarama salada is here. It's so far above anything else.
Now, are you getting proper tarama, like white tarama or pink stuff?
I love white tarama, by the way. But if I'm in a rush, I'm just getting Chris's, I can deal with it. But proper tarama is, you'd know.
Yeah.
It's just out of this world. So I'm going to go tarama into a good hummus. And probably just behind it is, tzatziki is good with things. I wouldn't have it as a dip. I don't like it on
I don't get that.
I don't think that's... So I think you're probably throwing in a baba ganoush.
Yeah, baba ganoush
or a spinach dip. Sorry. Olive dip is my third.
Yeah, for me, I would say the same. I like I've had the differences now. Like Pilpal will do this really well. Is olive oil base hummus.
Yeah.
Dip.
Not tahini or whatever it is.
Well, it's still got tahini and chickpea and all that, but the oil they use is not vegetable oil, and it's distinctly different. The flavour is way better. Yeah, it reminds me of what my grandma used to do.
I was going to say, homemade hummus is completely different to the stuff you get from...
So, I make tzatziki at home. I could never have that as a dip, but baba ganoush is it for me, I think.
Well, baba's good. Look, I think I grew up in a household where it was all about your kind of small goods. So we love dips, cheese. There'll always be condiments in my fridge because I'm a condiment guy. Yeah. And I mean... mayonnaise, tomato sauce, there's some form of chili or hot sauce, sweet chili, chutney. If I'm making a sandwich, there's often 4 sauces on that sandwich.
Yeah. That's pretty much my lunch is like, it's this weird mix of Mediterranean with sort of Northern European.
You would have great school lunches.
Oh, amazing. I told Marty this, I used to get my mum to make extra sandwiches like salami and mozzarella and spinach, and I'd sell them to these kids in Brighton because I wanted to buy fucking tuck shop food, which is the
You wanted a Chico roll, and they want this beautiful salami sandwich.
Oh my God. I can't believe that in hindsight, but it worked. Like I got $5 or $10 or whatever.
That's typical. Can I say a very typical story? I've heard many like Greek and Italian kids tell the same story, which is that their food was so good they ate it every day. They didn't want it.
Yeah,
we're going bocconcini. What's that?
Bocconcini.
Oh my god.
My lunch literally for the last month or two has been like small goods, just like lots of salmon, some leg ham Christmas, lots of Gouda, Jarlsberg, leftover tzatziki that I make like every few nights, and whatever dip and whatever's left over, basically. I love it. Nothing better.
Sounds like our fridges are quite similar.
Yeah. Right, last question for you. If you could have a billboard anywhere in Victoria, or Melbourne, let's say, where would it be first of all, and then what would it say?
Hilarious. Because I have been on a billboard before. And you know what? It was this is with Expedia ad I did many, many years ago. It's quite, as a side note, this is quite a funny story. I was dating a girl, and then we broke up, and it was, it was acrimonious at the time, and then she got all upset and whatever, and I remember her telling me this story. She sat at a bus stop, and this bus went by and my face was on it. She was like, oh, she turned around and the tram went by, that had my face on it. She looked up and there was a billboard that had my face on it. And she was like, this kills me. But no, there was a period of time when I was like, every billboard on the way to the airport, if you drove from, say, Malvern on CityLink, you'd see 3 of my faces. That's a surreal experience. In fact, I had one time sitting at the junction of Brunton Avenue, so not far from here, and Punt Road. And I'm in my car, and I get to my car, and I look up, and there I am on the billboard, straight ahead as you sit on Punt Road. And I look to my left, and there's a car, and there's a guy and a girl in the car, and they're sitting there talking. And the woman's sort of looking up at this billboard, and she looks up at the billboard, and she sort of looks at me, and she looks up at the billboard, and then she looks back at me, and she goes, and I go like this, and just point at my face, and she goes, oh my God. And I'm like, what was that like? And then they were like, we're just thinking about we should go to New York, because it was advertising go to New York. It was a funny experience.
That is fucking hilarious.
Doesn't answer your question, but if in terms of where would the billboard be, I mean, you're hard pressed to go past on the Nilex sign.
Yeah,
that
is a consistent one.
Nice and prominent.
That or Melbourne Airport.
And in terms of what it would say, it would be something along the lines of just love everyone.
Yeah.
I just feel like the world right now is so scary, sad, fractured. We're living in a time where I grew up in a household that was certainly left-leaning, but you were allowed to have your own thoughts. Now it feels like you're either left or you're right.
Yeah,
and what's that thought? And if you do that, well, then you're left-wing or you're right-wing, you're conservative. There's no kind of middle ground anymore.
Yeah.
World's too fractured. So I'd love something that was a message that would just unite people. That's the thing we need the most right now.
Yeah. Going back to that book with Viktor Frankl, that was the thing that he spoke about. The one thing that makes that everyone can focus on and be their North Star in life, or that makes a human, he believes, is through love and in love. Being in love with something and showing love through something is sort of the key thing in life, he believes. And those were the people that survived the camps, the ones who had that North Star. No doubt, absolutely no doubt. And I think having children really gives you a different perspective on that. Yeah. Because you want the best for your child, and you start to see the things out there that you don't like. It shifts your narrative a little bit. So I think that would be it. It's just right now the world's a really funny, weird place. So anything we can do to bring people together is a good thing. Sure, mate. Thank you for coming in. Where can people find you on the interwebs? Well, they can find shurataft.com.au. They're getting married, shoemarriesyou.com.au. There's also, I'm happy to be a celebrant MC. And I've just started, as you mentioned, this Paired Media. So pairedmedia.com.au. We're offering ourselves media training, media development, presentation skills, all those things, interviews, techniques. So that's up and running. They can find me often at a cafe having an oat magic coffee somewhere in Melbourne or on a golf course. That's what my wife would say. What's your Instagram handle again? @Shura Taft. @Shura Taft, yeah. All right. Thanks for coming in, mate. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. Cheers. Thank you so much for watching Uncommon and this week's episode. If you like it, smash that like button. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, please do subscribe. We would love that. We'd love to build this audience that we're growing here of Uncommoners. If you want to keep up to date with audio, you can search for us on all of your good podcast apps. It's Uncommon or Uncommon Show. Will typically find us. For social, you want to see behind the scenes this amazing studio that I'm sitting in. Just search at Uncommon_show. And everything will be there, including our weekly promos. But look, thanks so much for stopping by. Until next time, thanks for watching.